The Galactic Dominion's call to join resounded across the universe and was sent through all known pathways. It was not just an offer, it was a harsh dare. The statement began with a sobering fact: this project has a 99.9% death rate. Failure guaranteed death, while success offered wealth, respect, and eternal fame in the Dominion. Images of empty, strange landscapes, wrecked ships, and the bones of former challengers, Dominion's best warriors, made the ominous words stand out even more. It said these soldiers had tried before and failed, so now they were looking for someone stupid or smart enough to beat them. On Earth, everyone responded quickly and in the same way. While other alien species reacted with fear, humans were fascinated and found the event fascinating. There were conversations among Earth's military leaders, explorers, and regular people, but one thought came up over and over again: this sounds fun. Michael Archer, who called himself the leader of humanity's first trip into the universe, watched the transmission with a small smile on his face. Michael, whose eyes were a deep blue, looked at every frame carefully, breaking down the Dominion's call for help. In his mid-30s, he had small scars on his face that showed he had lived a dangerous but successful life. He was at the head of a table on the Centurion, Earth's first starship, with his carefully chosen team all around him. Stephen Steele, the planner, sat back and ran his fingers through his short, gray hair. "They are desperate," he said with a laugh. "Broadcasting to the whole galaxy? That is a last option." The ship's tech, Alex Rains, whistled softly as pictures of a planet covered in acidic weather and full of huge alien animals showed up. "Kronos 4, he read out loud while looking at the data: gravity changes, aggressive animals, and environmental risks off the charts, and they want us to go there?" Lucas Cross, the sniper, adjusted his seat, his arms crossed, and his face stern but eager. He just said, "It is a task. They think it is impossible. They think we will fail like those before us," Michael said in a cool but firm voice. "It is more than a challenge, it is a chance." His smile turned into a full grin. "Let us show them they are wrong." There was a moment of silence as the weight of his words hit home. Jason then laughed, easing the tension by saying, "You are crazy, Michael." "But you are still here," Michael replied. They knew there were risks, but no one in their group was afraid to take them. Even though humans had only recently made their mark on the galaxy, they were quickly becoming known for being risk-takers and creative thinkers. People were called rude and violent by other species, which they were proud of. When Michael put Earth forward for the job, the Dominion's representatives were not as pleased. The first response was stunned silence, followed by questions of doubt. "You understand the rules of Kronos 4, a Dominion official asked, sounding doubtful as his hologram picture flickered in the Centurion's meeting room. The alien, who was tall and thin and had clear skin and glowing blue eyes, felt sorry for Michael and his crew. Michael said yes. "We have looked over the data and are ready," they said. "Your kind has never been on a mission of this size before," the official replied. "You are not experienced." "We will handle it," Michael said quickly, being polite but firm. "Unless you are ready to tell the galaxy that the Dominion turned down the only brave volunteers for this task," the official asked. His eyes got narrow. "Very well," he finally said. "But understand this, failure will not be seen as brave, it will be seen as proof of how cocky people are." "Taken care of," Michael said with a smile. That made it legal for them to take on what was now called the elite job. They started making plans right away. Jason looked through the Dominion's data and made plans for possible routes through Kronos 4's dangerous settings. Alex worked hard in the tech bay of the ship to make sure that their tools would work well in the harsh conditions of the world. Lucas worked on his aim for hours in the training room, shooting at computer versions of Kronos 4's known threats. Even though their task was very important, the crew's friendship never changed. One night in the mess hall, Alex asked, You do realize they are betting on us to die, right? Michael shrugged. Let them. It will make our victory sweeter. Lucas smirked. They will probably write it off as a fluke. Jason raised his glass and said, they can call it whatever they want as long as we return alive. When the day of departure came, the Dominion planned a simple ceremony. It was not really a celebration because no one was looking forward to their return. As the representative of the Dominion spoke to the crowd, Michael stood in front with his team lined up behind him. Today, the ambassador began, we see an act of bravery, or perhaps folly, unlike any other. This young species, new to our galactic community, has volunteered for a task that has eluded even our most experienced. Their optimism is admirable, but let us temper it with reality, the odds are not in their favor. Michael spoke up, cutting the ambassador off. Thank you for the vote of confidence, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He looked back at his team and then out at the crowd and said, we will see when we get back. The ambassador got angry, but Michael did not care about the formalities. He was only thinking about the task and showing how strong people could be. Michael felt a rush of excitement as the Centurion rose, leaving the city of the Dominion in its wake. It was not just about staying alive, this task was also about making a point. He told them, set course for Kronos 4, and his voice was firm. As Jason typed in the numbers, the ship's engines hummed louder as it got ready to go into hyperspace. Are you all ready? Michael asked as he looked over the bridge. Alex smiled and said, born ready. Lucas nodded quietly and checked his gun one last time. Jason smiled and said, let us show them what people can do. As the Centurion jumped into hyperspace, Michael leaned back and looked determined. He knew the risks and the odds, but he also knew one basic truth, people did well when others did poorly, and this time would be no different. The Centurion's strengthened skin groaned as it entered Kronos 4's atmosphere, being hit by strong winds and very sharp acid rain. From the cabin, you could see a landscape lit by green lightning and a gray sky filled with ash. Below you, there was an endless stretch of rocky rocks, boiling tar pits, and bioluminescent rivers. This planet is trying to kill us before we even land, Alex said in a low voice as he hunched over his engineering panel. That is why we have you, is not it? Michael asked without taking his eyes off the controls. Alex laughed, but he kept his attention on the words. Alex told her, yeah, well, do not get cocky. These systems were not made for this kind of abuse. Noted, Michael said in a dry tone. Jason stood behind Michael with his arms crossed and looked out at the land through the strengthened glass in the cabin. Landing will be hard because those cliffs look like they are moving, said the pilot. They are, said Lucas from the weapons station, zooming in on the cliffs to show a frightening truth. They were covered in huge, slowly moving creatures that mixed in with the rock forms. Living rocks, Jason said in a low voice. Great. Is there anything else we should know? Lucas asked as he looked around some more. Swarm coming in at 10 o'clock, she said. Without delay, Michael ordered, brace yourselves. As the swarm came into view, the ship's automated systems blared a warning. It was made up of hundreds of winged predators, each about the size of a small fighter craft, and their sharp wings cut through the storm with deadly accuracy. The horrible things had shown up. Michael told them to do an evasive move. As the Centurion escaped the first group of attackers, it turned quickly and its engines roared. The creatures screamed, and their sounds could be heard through the hull as they went around again. Shields are up, but not for long, Alex said, his voice tense. Michael told Lucas to turn them on. Lucas smiled and ran his fingers over the buttons quickly. The ship's front guns went off, firing a hail of plasma that cut through the crowd like a surgeon's blade. Explosions lit up the sky as some creatures broke apart in the air, but more kept coming, and it seemed like there were an infinite number of them. They are changing, Jason said as he watched the creatures change their shape to avoid the gunfire. "This is not going to be one in the air." Michael said, "We do not need to. Alex, find me a place to land." Alex looked quickly around his console. "There is a space about 2 clicks west, but it is not ideal." "What does not ideal mean?" Michael asked. "Salty pools, shaky ground, and oh no, more of those cliff crawlers." Michael's jaw clenched. "That will do for now. Hold on." The Centurion dove quickly, and the thing was right behind it. Michael pushed the engines as hard as they would go and weaved through the storm with a confidence that was almost wild. As the ship got closer to the ground, it shook fiercely, and through the smoke, the opening could be seen. "Landing gear deployed," Alex said, his hands moving quickly as he worked to make the systems stable. Michael told Lucas, "Keep them away from us." Lucas did not answer because he was too busy swiveling the ship's guns to keep the swarm from getting through. A lot of noise was made as more of the things fell, but it was clear that they were overpowered. The Centurion hit the ground with a loud thud. Michael turned off the engines and unbuckled his seatbelt all at the same time. The ramp was dropped, and the team stepped out into the open with their guns ready. "Alex, keep the ship running. We might need to get out quickly." The smell of sulfur and something metal was strong in the air, and acid rain made the ground hiss under their feet. The animals screeched above, but they did not seem ready to come down to the ground. Lucas pointed his gun up in the air and asked, "Why are not they following us?" "They are smart," Jason said, his eyes getting narrow. "They know something we don't." Just when they were about to step, the ground below them shook. Michael barely had time to yell a warning before the ground split open and a huge, hooked arm came out of it. The thing that owned it was buried deep below the ground. Its body was hidden, but its plans were clear. They were thieves. Michael yelled, "Move," and dove out of the way as the part hit the ground where he was standing. Jason got up and fired a burst from his plasma gun at the limb that was still on the ground. The shots hurt the thing, but they did not slow it down. Michael told Lucas, "Take it out." Lucas got down on one knee and kept his gun steady even though the ground was shaking. He fired one shot, and the bullet went through the limb and made a terrible crunch sound. The thing let out a loud roar and sank into the ground, but Michael knew it would not stay there for long. His voice was tight as he said, "We are sitting ducks out here." The rocks on the other side of the area were shown by Michael. "We are going to the rocks, move." The team ran over the rough ground, passing acid pools that hissed in a scary way. Another limb shot out of the ground and almost hit Jason, but they did not stop. When they got to the cliffs, the tall rocks gave them some protection from the rain and the animals flying above. Michael leaned against the rock to catch his breath and look around. The man asked, "Status?" Jason responded, "Alive," but his voice was full of anger. Through the radio, Alex added, "Barely. The ship will not last long in this setting. You would better find what we are looking for quickly." Michael said yes, but his mind was racing. The job had only just begun, but the planet was already as dangerous as people said it would be. He was not going to give up, though. He told himself, "This is nothing more than anyone else." Lucas gave me a strange look. "Nothing?" Michael asked with a smile. "We have been through worse." Lucas did not answer, but he had a small smile on his face. On the other hand, Jason was not as pleased. His eyes were fixed on something far away. "I hope you are right," he said, "because this place is not going to give us a break." Michael followed his gaze and felt his smile fade. There was a structure in the distance that was ancient and alien, and it was not built like anything they would seen before. "That is it," Michael said, his voice steady. "How do you know?" Jason asked. The team looked at each other, but no one spoke up. They had a job to complete, and Michael was not going to let anything, Drao, acid rain, or anything else this planet had in store, get in their way. As they started to walk toward the building, the storm got worse, and the wind howled like a living thing. Michael tightened his grip on his gun and became more aware of his surroundings. It kept raining, and each drop sizzled when it hit the team's armored suits. The ground was unstable, and it felt like the planet itself was trying to swallow them up. Michael Caine led the way, his rifle at the ready, and he looked around for any sign of movement. "This place is a nightmare," Jason said in a low voice that could barely be heard over the howling wind. "You are right," Lucas replied, his tone calm but his grip on his gun tight. "Stay sharp." "Is anyone else getting a bad feeling about this?" Michael asked. As they got closer, the building's huge, jagged spires reached up into the stormy sky. Its surface was covered in alien writing that pulsed faintly, as if it were alive. The air around it was thick and buzzed with a strange energy that made the hair on the back of Michael's neck stand on end. The ship's radios picked up Alex's voice. "Just keep the Centurion going," Michael told him. "We have got this." "Sure you do," Alex growled. Jason stepped closer to one of the glyphs, his interest beating his sense of safety. "These markings, they are not just for looks. Can you read them?" "They are a language, maybe a code." James shook his head and said, "Not until we have more time, and I do not think we have much of that." Michael agreed and said, "Then we keep going." They found an entrance at the base of the structure, a massive archway that loomed like the gaping maw of some ancient beast. The interior was dark, but the faint glow of the glyphs provided just enough light to reveal a narrow corridor that stretched into the depths of the building. "Stay close," Michael said, stepping inside. The air was colder here, carrying a metallic tang that made every breath feel heavy. The walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with the glyphs, as if the entire structure was alive. "This place gives me the creeps," Lucas said, his voice low. Jason smirked. "That's probably the point." They moved in silence, their footsteps echoing off the smooth alien stone. The corridor twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the structure. Every so often, they passed what looked like statues, hulking figures carved from the same material as the walls, their faces obscured by intricate helmets. "Guardians," Lucas said, his voice tinged with unease. "Let's hope they stay statues," Michael replied. The hallway led to a huge room with a dark ceiling. In the middle of the room was a pedestal with a small glowing object on top of it. The object's light was soft but piercing, casting strange shadows on the walls. "That is it," Michael said in a steady voice. "How do you know?" Jason asked. The team cautiously walked toward the artifact, their weapons ready. As they did so, the air got heavier, as if the artifact's energy were pressing down on them like an invisible weight. "Whatever this thing is, it is powerful," Jason said, his voice strained. "And dangerous," Lucas added. Michael walked up to the pedestal and looked at the artifact. It was a small crystalline object whose surface moved and shimmered like it held a living galaxy. He did not hesitate, he grabbed it firmly, and as soon as his fingers closed around it, the whole room shook. "Michael, what did you do?" Jason asked, his voice getting louder. Before Michael could answer, the statues along the walls came to life. Their eyes were a deep red color, and they moved slowly but deliberately as they stepped forward, each holding a huge, crackling energy weapon. "Guardians," Lucas said grimly, raising his rifle. "Fall back," Michael ordered. As the team moved back toward the corridor, firing as they went. The Guardians kept moving forward, their weapons firing bursts of energy that burned the walls and floor. One of the blasts almost hit Michael, and the heat from the fire around him was intense. "These things do not go down easily," Lucas said, barely slowing down the closest Guardian. "Then we do not fight them. We outrun them." "Get up," As they ran down the hallway, the heavy footsteps of the Guardians could be heard behind them. There was a faster flash of light from the marks on the walls, making it look like the building itself was responding to the intruder. "What is going on in there?" Alex asked over the radio. "There are huge energy surges on the ship." "We have got company," Michael replied. "Get ready to leave right away." "Easier said than done," Alex replied. "This storm is getting worse." "We will deal with it," Michael said. "Just be ready." The team came out of the structure into the storm, where it was raining harder than before. The creatures were still hovering above, but their attention seemed split, as their screeches mixed with the distant roars of the Guardians. "We are stuck between a swarm and a death squad," Jason said in a tight voice. "Then we make a path," Michael said. Lucas positioned himself with his rifle on the approaching Guardians and said, "Go, I will cover you." "No one's staying behind," Michael said firmly. Lucas smirked and said, "Did not plan on it. Just do not throw away an early lead." Michael nodded, leading the team toward the Centurion. The Guardians were slower in the open, their massive forms struggling to navigate the uneven terrain. Lucas fired a precise shot, hitting one of them in the knee joint and causing it to stumble. "That won't hold them for long," Jason said, glancing over his shoulder. "It doesn't have to," Michael replied. "Alex, lower the ramp." The Centurion's ramp descended, and the team scrambled aboard. The ship's engines roared to life as Michael slid into the pilot's seat. "Strap in," he ordered. The creatures lunged toward the ship, but the Centurion's turrets roared to life, cutting them down before they could reach their target. The Guardians, undeterred, raised their weapons and fired. Energy blasts slammed into the ship's shields, causing the entire vessel to shudder. "Shields at 40%, Alex shouted. "Hold them," Michael said, gripping the controls. The Centurion lifted off, the storm raging around it. The Guardians continued to fire, their shots growing more erratic as the ship gained altitude. "Punch it," Jason yelled. Michael didn't need to be told twice. He engaged the thrusters, and the Centurion shot into the sky, leaving Chronosphere's deadly surface behind. The team let out a joint sigh of relief as they broke through the atmosphere, but Michael's grip on the controls stayed tight. "That was too easy," he said in a low voice. Jason raised an eyebrow. "Easy? Were you and I on the same world?" Michael did not answer. He kept his eyes on the item that was now in a containment field. Whatever it was, it almost killed them, and it was not over yet. Lucas leaned back in his seat and asked, "So, what is the plan now?" "We figure out what this thing is and why the Dominion was ready to risk everything for it," Michael said with a tense jaw. The others looked at him with unease but did not say anything. The job was not over by a long shot. The artifact pulsed faintly as the Centurion jumped into hyperspace, casting eerie shadows across the cabin. Michael could not shake the feeling that they were only just beginning to face the danger. "Buckle up," he said in a low voice, "it is going to get worse before it gets better." As the Centurion came out of hyperspace into the calm of a faraway star system, its engines groaned from the strain of the jump. The once perfect hull was scorched and pitted, proof of their brutal escape from Chronosphere. Inside, the crew sat in tense silence, their adrenaline finally ebbing but leaving them tired and uneasy. Michael leaned back in his pilot's chair and looked at the crystal object in the middle of the room. It pulsed with a rhythm that was almost hypnotic, casting shifting shadows that seemed to dance along the walls. "Whatever that thing is, it is not just some treasure," Lucas broke the silence. He stood next to the container unit with his arms crossed and a grim face. "Treasure does not wake up death squads. And it does not send an entire planet's ecosystem into overdrive," Jason added, pacing the small cabin. His usual confidence was missing, and he moved around a lot. "That thing is alive, I am telling you." "Alive," Alex said over the comms from the engine room. Great, because what we really needed was a sentient cosmic nightmare on board. Michael did not pay attention to the small talk, he was focused on what he was saying. We need answers, and we need them now. Jason stopped pacing and looked at him. And where are we supposed to get those? We could not find any signs in the Dominion's records. Lucas stepped closer to the containment field and narrowed his eyes. We could try to connect with it and see if it answers. That is the worst idea you have had in months, Alex said over the radio. What if it fries the ship? Or even worse, fry us? It would not have let us leave that world if it wanted us dead, Lucas said with a shrug. No matter what it is, we will take it. That does not mean we should start poking it, Jason said in an angry voice. Michael stood up and said, Lucas is right. When it had the chance, this thing did not hurt us. But let us be careful, he told Jason. Get the scanner ready. Alex, make sure the engines are ready. If this thing goes sideways, we're jumping out of here. Copy that, Alex replied, though his tone suggested he wasn't thrilled about the idea. Jason moved to the ship's scanner, activating the system with a few quick taps on the console. A soft hum filled the cabin as the equipment calibrated. Ready when you are, he said. Michael nodded and stepped closer to the containment field. The artifact's pulsing seemed to quicken as he approached, its glow intensifying. He hesitated, then placed a gloved hand on the edge of the field, just close enough to feel the faint warmth radiating from the object. The moment his hand hovered there, the artifact reacted. Its light flared, filling the room with a blinding brilliance. The hum of the scanner grew louder, its readings spiking wildly. Michael stepped back. Ethan, shield your eyes, he shouted, but he couldn't move. He felt a presence pressing against his mind, a weightless yet undeniable force that wasn't hostile but wasn't entirely benign either. It was as if the artifact was searching him, peeling back layers of thought and memory with an almost clinical precision. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light dimmed. The artifact returned to its steady pulse, and Michael stumbled back, gasping for breath. Michael, Jason was at his side in an instant, steadying him. What the hell just happened? Michael shook his head to clear his thoughts. It spoke to me, he said. Lucas frowned. Spoke? How? He spoke in a weak voice and said, not in words. It was pictures and feelings. It showed me things, a war, the destruction of whole societies, he said, his eyes still on the object. Then it asked me a question. What kind of question? It asked if I was willing to fight, Michael said, but Michael's face could not be read. The cabin went silent. Lucas's jaw tightened, and Jason started walking again, this time more agitatedly. And what did you say? Lucas asked in a quiet voice. Michael did not answer right away. He looked at the object for a moment, its glow steady and unwavering, before looking at Lucas. I said yes, Michael said. Jason took a deep breath and ran his hand through his hair. You said yes? Lucas asked. Like that? We have no idea what this thing is, Michael. I had no choice, Michael said with a firm voice. Whatever it is bigger than us and the Dominion. It will not matter what we think if we do not do anything. No one will be left to fight. Alex's voice broke the silence. Sorry to bother you, but we have guests. Multiple ships are coming in, and they are not friendly, the computer asked, Michael asked as he moved to the pilot seat. Looks like it, Alex confirmed. They must have been following us. Lucas muttered as he held his gun. Michael turned on the Centurion systems and told everyone to report to their posts. We are not going to let them take this. The team moved quickly, forgetting how tired they were because of the impending threat. Michael steered the Centurion into a defensive position as the Empire ships dropped out of hyperspace, looking sleek and dangerous. Their weapons charged right away, and a voice over the comms said, "This is Captain Rao of the Imperial Fleet. Give up the item, and your lives will be saved." Michael smiled and kept his hands on the keys. "Lucas, did you hear that? If you do not give up, you will be destroyed." "They think they have us," Lucas said with a grin as he ran his fingers over the weapons. "Let us show them they are wrong." The Centurion moved surprisingly quickly, darting through the void as plasma bolts lit up the darkness. Lucas fired back, his shots accurate and steady. Jason worked on the scanner, the console's light shining on his face. "Michael, the artifact's energy is rising again. I think it is responding to the fight. Can you handle it?" Michael asked as he dove through another round of fire. "I do not even know what it is doing, let alone how to control it," Jason replied. The artifact pulsed brighter, filling the cabin with its light. Suddenly, a beam of energy shot out from the containment field and cut through the closest Imperial ship like a knife through paper. The other ships hesitated, their formation breaking. "Looks like it is fighting back," Lucas said, his tone both impressed and uneasy. Michael did not take his eyes off the controls. "Good. Alex, plan us a way out of here," I asked. "Already working on it," Alex replied. The Centurion moved through the chaos as the artifact's energy continued to hit their attackers. One by one, the Imperial ships crashed, turning from sleek structures to smoldering wreckage. When the last ship was destroyed, the artifact's light dimmed again, its energy fading away as quickly as it had surged. Michael led the Centurion away from the battlefield, his hands steady even though he was high on adrenaline. Jason sat down, his breathing heavy. "That thing just saved our asses." Lucas looked at the artifact and asked, "But at what cost?" Michael did not answer right away because his mind was racing with images of the war, the destruction, and the question. Finally, he said in a steady voice, "We are not done by a long shot." The team looked at each other uncomfortably, but they did not argue because they all knew the truth. Whatever they had gotten themselves into, it was not over yet. The Centurion disappeared into the depths of space, leaving behind a faint pulse of light from the artifact as a reminder of the fight that was still to come.